One of the things many people are debating at West Ham right now is a lot to do with the team selection, but more specifically, what our midfield three should be, because we've got a few options in there, and the likes of Fornals being played out of on the left wing, as we've mentioned many times on previous shows, we think he should be in the middle. So this video is just going to be a quick one about what we think our best midfield three should be, and what Moyes, or the potential new manager, if he was to get sacked, should deploy, and if we were going to play a midfield three, what it should be. So yeah, we've got the options here. We've got three options to pick from. So we've got option A, which is Rice as the six with Fornals and Paqueta in front. We've got option B, which is Rice as the six again with Souček and Paqueta, as we've seen as well this season. Option C is actually Flynn Downs as the holder in his more natural position, and Bryce and Paqueta slightly advanced in front of him. So let's start with option A. What do you think of option A, and how would you like to see those three combine in a match? Do you think the chemistry would be there, or do we need a bit more physicality and someone like a Souček or someone like a Flynn Downs in there as well?
Yeah. So personally, for me, option A is the option. I've said it many times. I would be very hypocritical if I now go back and renounce my feelings on that kind of selection. But I think, as we well know, and as we've seen, we've not actually been overrunning midfield with Paqueta there. He battles really hard. He works well. So I don't think, the conversation, well, we need a big brute there. Rice is that player who provides that, I guess, muscle, but he provides more of that defensive nous. Now, obviously, Fornals isn't always great in a tackle, but he will run himself hard, and he will essentially press. He will cause them to maybe pass backwards. He maybe not win many in the duel, but he will do enough defensively in which to slow down the opposition, to maybe cause them to take that extra pass, or maybe even create an error. And I think what it does is it gives us tireless legs out of possession. So again, a lot of what's talked about with Souček is that he's a marathon runner, basically.
Yeah.
Fornals will run and run and run. And we've seen, obviously, with Rice and Paqueta, they are also not shy of putting in the hard yards as well. And I think ultimately our biggest problem is in possession. We don't have players who can get, when we get forward in our central, who really have the nous in which to kind of pick holes. Obviously, Paqueta, when he is able to get forward enough, can. But obviously, it's normally Souček is that player. And what we've seen with Fornals when he's out wide is when he comes inside, he's really good at linking play. He can also play the ball from deep. I think ultimately what it does is we actually then create much better rotation in that middle between those three.
Yep.
And Fornals and Paqueta will draw players, which ultimately will open up space in which then we could give to Rice, in which to burst through the middle. And I've said it countless times. We have a world-class number 6, but he's just a very good number 8.
Yeah.
And I know some people don't agree with that. That's fine. But a very good or world-class 8 will score you goals and will assist. Now, he can create and so on, but he isn't someone who is going to essentially get you many assists or get you many goals over the course of the season. I know one statistic that went out, he has created the most chances for us this season, but again, they're not necessarily huge value in terms of creating an assist. But again, if given the right space, because we have two players that are occupying spaces that the opposition then have to come out and press to, he could potentially have that. But again, I think him being in a deeper role where he can use his athleticism to burst through is a far better point. And also he's a brilliant player sitting at that base, moving laterally and stopping the opposition. So it just makes sense to me that is our best three because of what they could offer. I understand what people would say about their limitations, but I think the benefits far outweigh those limitations. And of those limitations, I think they're few.
Let's look at again, moving on to option B. This is the midfield three we've seen the most this season out of all of these options here when we have played that midfield three. And most recently, it has been option B with Rice sitting with Souček and Paqueta as well in front. people will argue that they like having Souček in here, like we mentioned, because of that. You know, he'll win those aerial duels, or at least people think he will win those aerial duels. He offers more of a threat from set pieces, and overall, he just does a lot more defensive work than people give him credit for, which I actually agree with. I think defensively, he does a lot, does a lot more than people do think he does. And actually, that's probably what I would say Souček's most valuable asset is right now to us, is his defensive work rate, rather than what he offers to us from an offensive point of view. So looking at it that way, yes, we'd be a bit more solid, say, than option A, because Souček offers you a bit more defensively. But, you know, Paqueta has already shown that he is not a number 10. He is an 8 that will, you know, compete and will challenge for things and will put in tackles and will work very hard. Same with Fornals, not necessarily the same as someone like Souček in terms of what they do defensively, but they will work very hard and they will press. And, you know, defending isn't always just about being compact and winning your tackles and interceptions. It's also about starting from the front. And, you know, when we do press, we get a lot of success, especially in most recent games against Leeds and even in moments against Wolves when they tried to play up from the back. We had our press, and, you know, Fornals was often part of that. And it made it very difficult for teams to break out and come through. So, yeah, I think the argument of Souček and what he offers offensively is kind of void now, because we're just not scoring from set pieces and he doesn't look like the threat he used to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, and we've mentioned it before on here, we've been obviously critical on aspects of his play, such as how he is in possession, his creativity in possession, and so on. But also we've praised his quality defensively. You know, he is a good player to press with. He is good for us at set pieces defensively, but offensively, he's again not been astute enough in his movement. He hasn't been as effective in front of goal. Again, he's not been a threat at set pieces. So in actual fact, what we're now doing is playing a player who's not very good or incisive in possession, isn't showing real quality in the final third either. We're playing him really because of his defensive contribution, but we're playing him in the advanced midfield role.
Yeah.
So we're actually kind of cutting our nose to spite our own face, really. And one of our problems is not defensive. One of our biggest problem has been about how we attack, how we score.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is we're not going to go down because we're conceding, just on conceding. We're going to go down because we can't score. And at the moment, we don't have any genuine threats. Yeah. And if he can't supply that in terms of the ability to break a team down in possession or via nicking the odd goal here and there, that's what you then got to look at. Well, what do I have in my squad that potentially can do that? Now, we know Fornals can nick a goal. We know he can make an incisive pass. We also have Ben Rama, who's now sitting on the bench. We're also looking at potentially Danjuma coming in. So all of a sudden you start to go, well, actually, you need players who can feed those players who are more consistent in front of goal. You need players who are going to support the likes of Skamaka as well.
Yeah.
Souček doesn't have the ability to link as well as those other players. Now, he hasn't been terrible recently. His performances have improved because, again, he's playing more advanced. But if he's not scoring, if he's not creating opportunities, the defensive work doesn't outweigh or doesn't really suggest he should start over others at this point.
Let's take a look at option C, which is slightly different because Rice is in a bit of a more advanced role. Now, we've seen Downs and Rice play. We've in very much not in the league, but Downs has often been the one that's been more advanced, but it's not his natural position. And there has been an argument from some fans that Rice is actually better when he's, you know, unleashed a bit more as an 8 and doesn't have just the sole purpose of being the 6. So an option C of Downs holding with Rice and Paqueta in front. Do you think this offers enough creativity? Because yes, you know, Rice has created the most chances for us this season, which is bizarre to me. And, you know, Downs hasn't really been given the opportunity in the Premier League, and he's actually performed really well in the likes of the Europa Conference League and the domestic cups. So what do you think with option C? Do you think there's enough of a balance there? Do you think, I know you've mentioned that Rice is, you know, a very good 8, but he's a world-class 6. Would you rather Downs maybe swapped with Rice in that situation in option C? Or do you just think at the moment with how it is, Downs just does not get into that team with the players we have.
Yeah, so my view is, and I know many people will share this, is that whilst Downs has been good, let's be genuine. The quality of teams he's played against are League One and maybe Championship standard when we talk about the Europa Conference. Now, that's not to say that Downs can't compete in the Premier League and he's not good enough to compete in the Premier League. When we talk about how brilliant his performances have been in there, we also have to acknowledge the level of quality he's also playing against. Now, my view is, as I said, Rice is a world-class number 6, and the indulgences that we've given to Rice in terms of allowing him to be a lot more free has also seen a bit of an unbalance in our midfield. What was working so well has been disrupted quite significantly to the point of now Souček, ultimately, due to just virtue of being picked quite often, has turned more into not a scapegoat, but a figure of frustration, because I don't see why you're playing there, which is obviously called for calls for Downs to play. And if the result was, is it Downs or Souček, I would pick Downs.
Okay.
But if I'm talking about a starting team, I don't think he is going to be creative enough in which to allow us to break teams down. Now, I think in certain situations, it is the right formation, because Downs and Rice will give us a lot of protection and a lot of endeavour in there. And the added enthusiasm and injection from Downs would work. And I've called about it in another one, just changing it up, just bringing in someone in who's fresh. Downs will bring in that freshness and that enthusiasm to kind of go forward. But again, I think because we're just obviously still assuming Moyes is manager and going to be managing, that he wants Paqueta now and Rice to play together. That means Downs is going to play as a focal point of that midfield. So when we've seen it, he just looks unaware of where to be positionally. He, whilst his passing is effective and he helps us control and maintain possession, again, you then go, well, why do you not play Lanzini there then? Or why is Fornals not there? So you just start to question as to if he's not, unless he's going to play in that role at the base, it's an unusual selection. And again, if we're talking about how Moyes is looking to try and link up with Paqueta and Rice, again, it doesn't necessarily fit with him going there, because Paqueta's obviously going to have to be a bit further forward. So you start to create these disconnects again and going back to where we weren't getting the best out of Paqueta. So it kind of like it's a player that deserves time and minutes in the Premier League, but does he deserve that? Is his introduction actually going to just reset us back to what we were trying to do previously, which was getting no results, or limited results? So
I think the main problem with Downs is, I really like Downs. I would love to see him playing in the Premier League. It's just, how does he fit in? Because I don't want to see him playing right mid away at Anfield. I don't want to see him playing as a number 10 at Manchester United away. I want to see him as a 6, because even in those games at, say Anfield away, he was the one that was actually keeping and retaining possession really well. And that's exactly what he does. He will give us so much more in terms of keeping, retaining the ball in that midfield and controlling a midfield. But then, like you mentioned, he can't play in that advanced role. He shouldn't be playing in that advanced role, which is why I would maybe like to see option C, which is here, which is Downs holding with Rice and Paqueta, because I just think that has a nice blend to it. Again, there are question marks whether there's enough creativity in there, and whether, like you mentioned, if you're going to bring in someone to retain possession, you're better off just doing that with Fornals and having Rice sit as the world-class 6. But I think Downs has done enough for me to be playing in the Premier League, and I think he's shown enough quality for me to be playing. It's just, where does he fit? And maybe, Rice leaving in the summer might be the best thing for him if he sticks around, because he will get that chance to play as a 6. And it's hard to call, because we don't know whether we'll be in the Premier League.
I would again say, even if Rice goes, Downs doesn't start. I would like to
see him start.
I understand why people want to see him, but if we're being realistic and we're being very honest with ourselves, we want to be a top team. Is Downs going to be in a top team as a starter?
That we don't know. We don't know that, because we haven't seen him as a 6. Really,
we haven't seen him in the Premier League, granted, but I would also suggest that there are players who are of a higher level And we've moved too slow, so it won't happen now. But players like Kepram Thuram, Manu Kone, those type of players also can play as a number 6 and also be a bit more dynamic. They are a level above, and they're also younger. So it's when we start to kind of, if we're going to be really honest, and we're also going to talk about, going further forward, if we're also going to take Rice money, we can also buy a much higher standard than Downs. And that's nothing against Downs. I actually want to see Downs flourish and I want to see Downs play. But we also have to sometimes be honest with the actual level of quality. Now, Downs could be a very good player for us.
Yeah.
But again, when I look at Downs, I would take Downs over Souček. But if I'm looking at a team where I want to be more progressive and open, I'm not going to want to play him and Rice together because they're both very good, solid defensive players. And I think in some games, granted, I would probably play them together, like Man City did before Newcastle did to Man City when they played, I think, Hayden, and I can't remember who else they played, but they played 2 6s and just said, you two are going to sit and just marshal in front of that back line, and then we're just going to let the other players play on the break. Now, I think in certain games, Downs should start. I just don't see him as a starter if we're looking to be a really open and progressive team. And I do like him if he plays well. But
I agree with that. I think we're both on agreement that option A is the midfield 3 we want to see, and we've said it for a long time. I also think option C is a nice alternative, like you mentioned, for certain games, because we get to see Rice as maybe as more of an advanced player, and just to see whether he has a bit more creativity and can do that. And we also get to see Downs in his natural position, but I don't see that option ever coming up. I think we saw a little bit of option A in the second half of the Wolves match for about 10 minutes before Fornals came off, and it was actually working quite well. I think it's quite clear to most fans that Fornals and Paqueta have a nice link up already, and Rice sitting as the 6 is a really good blend. So it's so tough. But yeah, I think option A is pretty clear to most West Ham fans now, and us who have been saying it for a long time, that this is our best midfield 3. And option B, which we are playing at the moment, is probably the weakest of these 3 options here. So
yeah, exactly. That's how I see it. Option A would be my preferred. I think if in case of injuries, it would be option C.
Yeah.
And I think the great thing is, Souček would be an incredible asset to have to bring on for us when we're looking to close out a game and to kind of restrict space. I think that is incredible asset to have a player who can run like he can, where you can say, I need you for the next 30 minutes just to absolutely run your heart out in front of the defense. That's all I need you to do.
Exactly.
And I think ultimately, I think we have surpassed Souček slightly. I do think he still has value, but I don't necessarily see him as his value now in the first team when you look at the other players we have and the deficiencies we have in possession and in attack.
Exactly. So I think we're both on agreement. Option A. Let us know down in the comments what you think out of those options. You may have a different view. You may think Souček adds a bit more to the team than we see. So let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video as always, and subscribe to the channel if you are new, as it really helps us out. And until next time, come on, you Irons.